On a humid Wednesday morning, the sound of Thomas Reynolds' Italian shoes echoed through the mirrored hall of one of the most imposing buildings on Wall Street. The 38-year-old executive, CEO of Horizon Agricultural Group, walked with the confidence of someone born to command. His impeccable suit and Swiss watch contrasted with the simplicity of the figure waiting at the reception, an elderly gentleman with a straw hat, worn pants, and dusty boots. "Mr. Reynolds, there's a gentleman insisting on speaking with you," said the receptionist, clearly embarrassed. Thomas looked over his Italian designer glasses and saw the figure who seemed to have come from another time, another America. The old man held a leather folder, worn by time and use. Without hiding his disdain, Thomas gestured for the security guard to let him pass. 5 minutes. "That's all I have to offer," he said, entering his panoramic office. The gentleman, who introduced himself as Samuel Thompson, 72, owner of Peaceful Valley Farm in the Montana countryside, entered with slow but firm steps. His presence, though, a simple, carried a dignity that even the hostile environment couldn't diminish. "I came to talk about your proposal, sir," said Samuel, sitting down without being invited. "The answer is still no." Thomas smiled scornfully. It was the third time. That old man had refused the offer for the farm, a Huangsu 200-acre property, hiding one of the largest freshwater reserves in the region, and according to secret studies, an extremely valuable mineral vein. "Mr. Thompson, you're being irrational. I offered a value 10 times higher than what the market would pay. Your farm is running at a deficit. Your son abandoned the countryside for the city. What do you intend to do alone? Starve to death out of pride?" The old farmer didn't even blink. "My land is not for sale, sir. Not for 10, not for 100. Times the value. It's where I was born, it's where I raised my family, it's where I intend to stay." Thomas lost his patience. He stood up, walked to the window, and then turned with his face transformed by cold determination. "Listen carefully, you hillbilly. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I always get what I want, always. If not the easy way, then the hard way. I have resources. I have connections. I can make your life hell until you beg me to buy that land for half of what I offered today." Samuel also stood up. Without showing fear, he simply adjusted his hat. "Son, country folk may be simple, but we're not stupid. God sees your intentions. And so do I." When the old man left, Thomas immediately called his director of operations, Mark Peterson. "I want everything on that old man, everything, and activate Plan B. Let's see how long he can handle the pressure." In the following weeks, a series of incidents began to happen at Peaceful Valley Farm. Environmental inspections appeared out of nowhere. Samuel's regular corn buyer cancelled the contract without explanation. The bank tripled the interest on the small loan the farmer had taken out to install an irrigation system. One day, the water in the main creek appeared contaminated, killing some of the livestock. Samuel observed everything with the tired eyes of someone who has seen much injustice in life. Sitting on the porch of his simple but well-maintained house, he contemplated the orange sunset of the Montana countryside when a car approached, raising dust. "Dad, it can't go on like this," said Robert, his only son, a 30-year-old who had traded the farm for a job as an agricultural engineer in Bozeman. "These people won't stop. They have money and power." "And what do we have, son?" asked the old man, with a calmness that was disconcerting. "Just this land, Dad, which is slowly being destroyed by this persecution. No, son, we have something that men like Thomas Reynolds will never have." "What's that?" "Time, patience, and the truth on our side." Robert couldn't understand his father's tranquility in the face of the situation. What he didn't know was that in recent weeks, Samuel had spent hours in the small library of the neighboring town. There, with the help of a newly graduated young lawyer, Emily Fields, daughter of an old friend, he was studying a lot. Emily wasn't just an inexperienced lawyer. She was the daughter of Richard Fields, a former partner of Thomas Reynolds, at the beginning of Horizon Agricultural. Richard had been systematically robbed and pushed out of the business by Thomas years before, ending up in poverty and becoming ill because of it. Her detailed that the arrogant executive never bothered to investigate. "Mr. Thompson, I found something interesting," said Emily one afternoon during their research. "In the merger of Horizon with the Daybreak Group 3 years ago, there was a forgotten clause, a legal loophole that allows corporate transfers through tacit recognition in public acts." "And what does that mean, my dear?" "Means, Mr. Thompson, that we've found a path, but we'll need courage, patience, and a good plan." The old man smiled. Courage and patience were two things that were plentiful in someone who had spent his entire life fighting against droughts, pests, middlemen, and the injustices of rural life. Meanwhile, in his penthouse apartment in New York, Thomas Reynolds celebrated with imported champagne. Reports showed that the financial situation of Peaceful Valley Farm was critical. The old man would have to sell soon, and for a much lower price than initially offered. What he didn't imagine was that in a small town in rural Montana, a plan was being meticulously architected, a plan that would forever change the destiny of the powerful Horizon Agricultural Group and its ambitious president. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at the Horizon Agricultural Office. During this time, the situation at Peaceful Valley Farm had deteriorated even further. Samuel had to sell part of his cattle and reduce his corn planting by half. 2 of the 4 springs on his property had been mysteriously obstructed, and the few employees he still maintained were harassed with job offers at the largest farm in the region, recently acquired by the Horizon Group. However, anyone who saw the old farmer would not notice despair in his eyes, only a quiet determination. Every afternoon around 4 o'clock, he would take his old pickup truck and drive to town. The excuse was to buy medicine for the cattle, but the real destination was the small improvised office that Emily Fields had set up in the back of her parents' house. "Mr. Thompson, are you sure about this?" asked Emily, reviewing the papers spread out on the wooden table. "It's a risky plan. My dear, when you reach my age, you realize that the biggest risks in life are doing nothing in the face of injustice." Emily smiled. The presence of that gentleman had brought purpose to her newly started career. Graduated with distinction from the University of Montana Law School, she had returned to small-town Hopeville with big dreams but few opportunities. Samuel's case was her chance to do justice, not just for the old farmer, but also for her father, who still carried the emotional scars of what Thomas Reynolds had done to him. "The plan is almost ready," she said, adjusting her glasses. "I managed to schedule a meeting with Reynolds himself using the name of AgriNova, a fictitious company interested in a grain processing partnership. He doesn't even suspect I'm Richard's daughter." "And you think he'll fall for it?" "His ego is his greatest enemy, Mr. Thompson. Men like Thomas Reynolds are so used to stepping on others that they can't imagine someone might fight back." In New York, Thomas celebrated another victory. He had just closed the purchase of a cow farm neighboring Samuel's, tightening the noose around the stubborn old man. With this acquisition, he now controlled all viable market access for Peaceful Valley Farm products. "It's a matter of weeks, Mark," he said to his operations director, as they toasted with expensive whiskey. "Our geologists have confirmed there's a fortune in lithium ore in that area, and the stupid old man doesn't even imagine it. When we build the dam on the main river, his property will be isolated. He'll beg us to buy it." Mark Peterson, a middle-aged man who had been with Thomas since the beginning of the company, looked uneasy. "Thomas, don't you think we're going too far? I heard the old man had to sell part of his herd to survive." "So what? Business is business, Mark. Nobody told him to be stubborn. I offered a fair value at the beginning. Now he'll have to accept whatever I want to pay." The calendar advanced to a sunny Friday morning. Thomas, impeccable as always, received in his office a professional-looking young woman who introduced herself as a representative of AgriNova, supposedly interested in a strategic partnership for grain processing. "Mr. Reynolds, we're looking for partners in the agribusiness sector to expand our operations," said Emily, using green contact lenses and a false name. "Our company has advanced processing technology and needs partners with vision for the future." Thomas's ego was immediately massaged. The meeting lasted more than 2 hours, with Emily presenting impressive data on investment returns and international expansion. The executive barely disguised his interest. The partnership would require some initial formalities, she explained, handing him a folder with various documents. They're just preliminary terms of confidentiality and intentions. Thomas casually flipped through the papers while talking about his achievements and the expansionist vision of Horizon Agricultural. The young woman agreed with everything, admiringly, encouraging him to continue talking about himself. "Where do I sign?" he asked after a long exposition of his strategies. "On the marked pages, sir. They're just formalities to advance our conversations." With the gold pen he flaunted in his jacket pocket, Thomas signed document after document without reading. His mind was already calculating the profits from this new partnership. Among the AIB papers, skillfully inserted, was an apparently innocent document, but with devastating power. A corporate transfer term based on that forgotten clause from the merger with the Daybreak Group. The young woman left the building with firm steps, holding the folder as if it were a treasure. In a nearby cafe, Samuel awaited her, dressed in simple but clean clothes, trying not to draw attention in the sophisticated New York cafe. "So?" he asked, nervously. Emily's smile was the answer he was waiting for. "He signed everything, Mr. Thompson, absolutely everything. He didn't even read a single line. He was so busy talking about his achievements that he didn't even notice what he had in his hands." The old farmer took a deep breath, as if a huge weight had been lifted from his shoulders. His eyes watered. For a moment. "Richard would be proud of you, my dear," he said, referring to her father. "This isn't over yet, Mr. Thompson. We have to register everything and prepare the next step. He's going to fight with all his strength when he finds out. Let him fight. Men like him only understand the language of force. But now, the force is on our side." In the following weeks, while Thomas intensified the pressure on Peaceful Valley, farm blocking roads and making access to water even more difficult, Emily worked tirelessly on the legal procedures. The signed document was registered with the county clerk and digitally validated through blockchain, making any attempt at annulment practically impossible. A month later, on a grey morning in New York, Thomas received a panic-stricken phone call from his chief counsel. "Thomas, something very strange is happening. We received a corporate transfer notification. Someone is claiming that you transferred control of Horizon Agricultural." "What? That's absurd. To whom would I have transferred it?" There was an uncomfortable silence on the line. "To a certain Samuel Thompson, that farmer from Montana." Thomas felt his blood freeze. It was impossible. It had to be some kind of bad joke. He hung up the phone and rushed to the legal department. All the lawyers were gathered, with expressions of despair. On the central table, a copy of the document with his signature. "This can't be true," he shouted, grabbing the paper. "I would never sign something like this." But there it was, undeniably his signature, the same one he used on all official documents. The memory of the meeting with the Agrinova representative came back like lightning. The papers he didn't read, the pages he distractedly signed. "This is fraud," he yelled, punching the table. "We're going to sue that miserable old man and whoever else is involved." "It's not that simple," explained the head of legal with a trembling voice. "The transfer has already been registered and validated by blockchain, and technically, you signed of your own free will." Free will? I was deceived. "That's what we'll have to prove in court, and it could take years." While chaos was setting in at the headquarters of Horizon Agricultural, a man in a straw hat was slowly walking through the building's lobby. The security guards, confused, didn't know whether they should bar him or not, as rumors about the change in control were already circulating. The sound of Thomas Reynolds' impatient heels echoed down the corridor of the 30th floor of the building, where until a few days ago he reigned supreme. Now standing in front of the door of his former office, he hesitated like someone about to enter enemy territory. When he finally entered, the scene he saw left him astounded. Samuel Thompson, with his characteristic simplicity, occupied the presidential chair, while Emily Fields, now identified as his lawyer, calmly explained the details of the transition to two of the directors. "What does this mean?" exploded Thomas. "You can't just invade my company." Samuel adjusted his hat on the glass desk and responded with tranquility. "We haven't invaded anything, sir. We're simply exercising our legal right as the new controllers of Horizon Agricultural. You yourself transferred control to me with your signature. This is fraud. You deceived me. Emily stood up with a folder of documents in her hands. Deceived you? How exactly? We presented documents for signature, and you signed without reading. At no point was there coercion or falsification. You acted of your own free will, driven by arrogance and greed. Thomas advanced toward Samuel, but was restrained by the security guards, the same ones who previously obeyed his orders. You don't know who you're dealing with. I have contacts. I have power. I'll destroy you in court. Like you destroyed my father, Richard Fields? Asked Emily, finally revealing her identity. Do you remember him? Your partner at the beginning of Horizon, whom you betrayed and left in poverty. The color drained from Thomas's face. Richard Fields was a ghost from his past, one of many he left behind in his relentless rise. So that's it? A personal vendetta disguised as justice? No, Mr. Reynolds, replied Samuel, rising with the dignity of his 72 years. It's justice disguised as business, exactly as you did. The difference is that we used your own rules against you. In the following weeks, the story dominated the headlines of newspapers and business magazines. Farmer takes control of agribusiness giant using legal loophole. Public opinion was divided. Some saw the case as an inspiring story of David versus Goliath, others as a dangerous manipulation of the legal system. Meanwhile, at the company headquarters, significant changes began to happen. Samuel, advised by Emily and by a team of professionals he trusted, completely reorganized the structure of Horizon Agricultural. Predatory practices were replaced by a more sustainable and ethical approach. Contracts with small producers were revised to ensure faire conditions. The company, which previously had a terrible reputation among family farmers, began to be seen in a different light. Robert, Samuel's son, left his job in Bozeman and took on an important role in the new management, bringing his technical knowledge as an agricultural engineer to modernize operations without losing respect for natural resources and local communities. At first, profits fell as expected. The drastic changes frightened some traditional investors and clients, but surprisingly, new partners began to emerge. An international investment fund, specializing in sustainable businesses, expressed interest in making a significant contribution to the new Horizon. Mr. Thompson, the Green Future Fund wants to invest $300 million in the company, announced Emily in a meeting. They were impressed with the new direction and with our spring preservation policy. And the lands neighboring my farm? Asked the old man, who still maintained his original property. We're reversing all predatory purchases, explained Robert. Families who are forced to sell will have priority to reacquire their properties with facilitated financing. Thomas Reynolds, on the other hand, was facing the worst moment of his life. Removed from the company he created, he desperately tried to recover his empire. He sought out old partners and investors, but doors closed one after another. The news of how he had lost control of Horizon irreparably tarnished his reputation. In a last effort, he tried to write a book exposing his version of the story, but no publisher showed interest. The uncomfortable truth was that many in the market secretly celebrated his fall. Thomas had made many enemies in his climb to power. The situation worsened when Mark Peterson, his former operations director, decided to collaborate with the new administration. Mark revealed that many of the actions against Samuel had been executed without Thomas's direct knowledge, by initiative of a group within the company seeking the boss's favor. The blocking of the springs, the poisoning of the animals, the threats to the employees, all of that was done by Brian Wilson from the expansion department, confessed Mark. He thought he would be promoted if he got the farm at any cost. This revelation brought an unexpected twist. Brian, fearing legal consequences, approached the new board offering a plea deal. In exchange for immunity, he was willing to reveal other questionable practices of the old management, including manipulation of environmental licenses and tax evasion. The story gained even greater proportions when a streaming channel decided to produce a documentary about the case. The Land and Respect would tell the entire trajectory, from the first attempts to buy the farm to the final turnaround. But to Thomas's dismay, the narrative would be told from Samuel's perspective. In one of the most impactful scenes of the documentary, the old farmer walked through his property, showing the recovered springs, the healthy cattle grazing, and the local community working in harmony. "The land is not just a good to be exploited," he said to the camera. "It's a living being that sustains us. When we respect its limits and its cycles, it rewards us with abundance." That's what Thomas never understood. The premiere of the documentary was a national event. Critics praised the inspiring narrative and the message of sustainability. On social media, hashtags like #RespectEyeSEverything and Mr. Thompson became trending topics. Samuel, who never sought fame or recognition, became a symbol of resistance and integrity for millions of Americans. On the night of the premiere, Thomas watched alone in his now mortgaged apartment. The final scene showed Samuel in the president's office, where a new picture had replaced Thomas's pompous portrait. It was a simple phrase in a rustic frame. "Respect is not a detail. It's the most valuable contract that exists." An unexpected tear ran down the ex-executive's face. It wasn't just the material loss that afflicted him, but the late awareness that he had built his life on wrong values. As the credits rolled, his cell phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Reynolds?" Samuel's calm voice sounded from the other end. "I hope I'm not bothering you. What do you want? Aren't you tired of humiliating me yet?" "I don't call to humiliate anyone, son. I'm calling to make an invitation. We're starting a program to recover degraded areas in Montana. I need people who understand the market, who know the paths and pitfalls, people who can use their knowledge, for good this time." "Are you offering me a job?" asked Thomas between indignation and surprise. "I'm offering a second chance, like the one you never gave to Richard, Emily's father, like the one you never gave to so many small producers who crossed your path. Revenge is an endless cycle, sir, but reconciliation is a new beginning." Silence took over. The line. Thomas looked out the window of his apartment at the lights of New York that were beginning to turn on. For the first time in a long time, he considered the possibility that there was more to life than power and money. When should I report?" he asked with a choked voice. "Monday, at the farm, not at the office. This is where everything truly begins. Bring comfortable clothes, and Thomas, bring an open heart too." As he hung up the phone, Thomas felt something he hadn't experienced since childhood. Hope. Not the hope of recovering what he had lost, but of finding something he never really possessed. Peace. On the porch of Peaceful Valley Farm, Samuel smiled as he watched the sunset. Beside him, Emily seemed restless. "Are you sure about this, Mr. Thompson? Giving him a chance after everything?" "My dear, the land teaches us that even the most devastated field can bloom again, if cultivated with patience and wisdom. And there is no greater victory than transforming an enemy into an ally." On the horizon, the first stars began to dot the Montana sky. Silent witnesses that sometimes the greatest revolutions happen without noise, just with the quiet strength of respect. Dear listeners, we hope that the journey of Mr. Thompson and Thomas Reynolds has touched your hearts and awakened reflections on values that we often forget in our daily race. To continue this emotional journey, we've prepared a special playlist with equally captivating stories that explore themes such as respect, dignity, and the silent strength of wisdom. If this narrative about the power of integrity and patience resonated with you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give your like to this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexities of American life, from the countryside to the city, from traditions to contemporary challenges. How about sharing in the comments a game-changing story that you know or have experienced? Someone who, like Mr. Thompson, used wisdom and patience to transform an apparently lost situation. We're eager to learn about your experiences and continue this conversation that started today. Remember, just as in Mr. Thompson's story, sometimes the greatest victories don't come from power or strength, but from integrity and respect. Until the next episode.